welcome to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. My name is Danny Heifetz, and I am joined by Danny Kelly and Craig Horlbeck. And today we are previewing Week 3 of the NFL season. If you want start sit rankings, we have our rankings at fantasyfootball.theringer.com to help you with all your lineup decisions. We're going to go through all the games today, and we're just going to get right into it. Starting with, I can't believe we're so lucky to cover this. The game of the year.
Game of the year.
Game of the year.
This is the game of the year.
God. Great.
The Philadelphia Eagles are at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are home. The Saints are favored by 2.5. I had to double check this line because, Craig, this line moved a lot.
It did. It opened at the Eagles were favored by 2.5, and it's now gone all the way to the Saints being favored by 2.5. So I feel like you don't see that much movement that often, especially this early on in the season, and when there's no injury that occurred. Like this is just Vegas being like, "Oh shit, Saints are good. I guess we'll change this."
I love that too, because again, if Saquon had just caught everyone, all the consternation over the way the Eagles game ended on Monday Night Football. I love that you guys thought I was going to be mad about Saquon. I'm like, if Saquon just caught the ball, the line wouldn't have moved. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know where to start other than Derek Carr, I don't know if he's my nemesis because I don't think he knows that I exist. But Derek Carr, the Saints, fourth most points through 2 weeks, and God knows how long. Derek Carr leads the NFL in passing touchdowns. Derek Carr leads the NFL in passer rating. Quarterback rating, which is the better version of passer rating. He leads the NFL in passing yards per attempt. DK, do you think that Derek Carr is a fraud who will be exposed soon, or do you think that I'm going to have to quit my job in covering the NFL?
I mean, I don't think Derek Carr is necessarily all that different from what he's been his entire career, but the scheme is way, way better for him. Again, I keep coming back to that, the question, how bad was Pete Carmichael of a play caller?
The old Saints play caller.
You just throw in a little motion and do some play action, and all of a sudden you're the greatest offense in 100 years or something. So I don't know. I think Derek Carr is Derek Carr. I don't think he's obviously going to continue at this pace, but this scheme is obviously very good for him, and I think he's going to continue to be really efficient in it.
I mean, look, this is the Shanahan-ish offense, and it's working with Brock Purdy, the literal last pick in the draft. Why can't it work with Derek Carr? All this stuff seems so weird to me, to be honest. This is all too obvious. Why is this so easy? It's just crazy that it's oh yeah, the Shanahan thing. Just literally grab anybody from that offensive scheme, anybody who coached under Kyle, and it'll work. And it's kind of this too high thing on defense. It's it's just working. It's just screwing up everybody. And it's or you could just get a Shanahan coach and it'll work. And those are just the two truisms in football right now. It's this too high shell thing and disguising coverages is just fucking everybody up. And then if anybody knows Kyle Shanahan, they have the best offense.
It's the McShanahan tree.
The McShanahan, yeah.
The McShanahan. That's pretty good. It's the young devouring the old, to be totally honest. The answer, you put both those questions together of how could the Saints offense be so bad? How could it be as simple as going from last in motion to first and last in play action to first? And it really is just it's frankly, it's older coaches refusing to adapt, to be totally honest. At some point, we're going to have to talk about this whole freaking Mel Kiper. I don't know when you guys are going to want to do that, but the whole Mel Kiper too high coverage thing. I think the Cowboys and the Saints were the perfect embodiment of it. We'll get to Cowboys Ravens later too. I don't know when we want to have this conversation, but basically. So
this is my dad, even though he doesn't do this, shouts out my dad, but your parent or something listening to Spotify on the desktop, Googling Spotify and going to the URL rather than being no, you can actually just listen on your app. You're saying this is literally a boomer generation problem.
Yes.
The boomers must be stopped.
Honestly, yes. I really do.
They're listening to podcasts on their desktop. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's just kind of they're still listening to radio stations and waiting for a song to come on because they can't figure out Apple CarPlay. And there's a better way. I mean, I kind of... I think, the Ravens-Cowboys game, we might as well do this now because I think the Saints thing, it's interwoven to me with the Saints kicking the shit out of Dallas last week. And Dallas, I think Dallas gave up tied for the most first half points Dallas has ever given up. Maybe that was just at home, but it was 35 points in the first half. The Cowboys have been around for a long time. And you look at it, and it's Mike Zimmer is the perfect example of this. He's the defensive version of Pete Carmichael, who Mike Zimmer has been out of football for 2 or 3 years, and he was the Vikings coach, and he did a very good job on defense. But he comes back to Dallas, and it's all the same ideas from 3 years ago. Meanwhile, we're in a period of huge transformation defense. And what happens last week? I was talking to Cody Alexander, who is as smart of a guy as you can find on the defensive side of football. And he was explaining, he was just static equals death, where we're all right, all offense, everyone's in motion. So on defense, if the offense is going to do pre-snap motion, defenses do post-snap motion. You're you can't just sit there and play. And so what Cody was telling me, and it makes so much sense. All the quarterbacks are facing basically all Madden level difficulty, the highest level difficulty defenses, where it's like, we're going to show you a blitz and then it's not. We're going to show you cover 1 and then it's cover 2. We're going to show you cover 2 and then, it's like everything's different. Then you play Dallas, Mike Zimmer. What you see is what you get. 92% last week of the Saints, 92% of the Dallas's defensive looks, what they showed was what happened. And so, and that doesn't work anymore. But so Mike Zimmer is trying to do this with Eric Kendricks. It's the same freaking linebacker who 3 years ago. And I think it's not just the Cowboys. It's representative of, look, man, it's like the Pete Rose thing. Like, you don't change your swing. That's what get you to the big leagues. Imagine being a coach and you have this 25-year thing and you're like, hey, change. And it's like, you know what's easier? Don't fucking change.
So going up against the Cowboys defense is like when your grandpa's like, hey, Craig, is there any way you could like connect my AirPods to my computer and my phone? And you're like, actually, yeah, that's pretty easy. I can absolutely do that. And you just look like a genius.
100. Yes, exactly. And so we're like, and that is exactly it, because I think that actually, Craig, that's a really good metaphor, because that's exactly what's happening to people. Like, I mean, from the outside in, you're like, oh my God, Clint Kubiak, fucking magician. And you give Clint Kubiak's truth serum and he's like, shit, man, a third of the league's doing this shit. They just weren't doing any of it. You know what I mean? This was fucking easy. It's hard to even explain how easy it was.
Do you have any idea how easy this is for me?
You have any idea?
Yeah, I think the term static is such a good, that really is effective for me, because like if you think back, and this is another example in my backyard, like Pete Carroll, you know, his defense for a while in the 2012 to 2016 era was like one of the greatest defenses of all time. Generally speaking, what they did was line up and just beat you. Like
and they just had like
better.
Long freaks at cornerback, right?
Yeah, and they really didn't like try and hide stuff. I remember like listening to Richard Sherman do interviews and stuff. He's like, we don't try to hide what we're doing. Everybody knows what we're doing. We're basically lining up at almost the same defense on every snap. They were just so disciplined and so good at it that teams couldn't beat it. And then over the years, teams start to figure out, like, number one, like the rules of how your defense works. They figure that out, and then they exploit those rules. So like if they send a guy in motion and that means you have to switch, like the corner switches with the linebacker or whatever, you know, there's certain rules they have as like the offense is getting into their set. And then the offenses were starting to like exploit these rules and knowing the rules and figuring out holes. And basically just over the years, Pete Carroll's defense was, you know, the way that they were playing it just became really exploitable and beatable. And also it helps to not, when other teams don't have Hall of Famers at like 7 positions. So yeah, I mean, I think on defense, teams are rotating in and out of looks before the snap. They're like you got line up 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. Everybody looks like they could come. And then some of them will drop back. Some of them will rush. And it's just very difficult for the offense to counter that right now. And I think a lot of quarterbacks are still trying to figure out how to do that. And the smart coaches are using motion themselves. So they're moving all their guys around and basically making it hard for the defense to figure out what's coming. So
if I was a middle of the road quarterback, like a Derek Carr, a Gardner Minshew, anybody kind of in that pocket passer guy from a different era, I would be taking less money to go play for a Mitch Shanahan coordinator.
Oh, that's a great call.
You can completely change your career.
Yeah.
This is
like an actor being like, I just want to work with a good director. I'll take less money. I just want to be in the movie. Like, I don't care. Derek Carr might get a new contract now because of
you're making the offensive line better too. The Saints, my biggest concern was the offensive line, and I looked at the Saints and I basically was like, are we really going to assume that just some random Kubiak son is just going to turn it around so easily? And fuck, yeah, he did. It really was easy.
Some random
Kubiak really good job.
Got any Shanahans laying around?
Dude,
any cousins?
We should make that meme of just the Matt David, like, do you know how easy this shit is for me?
Well, and you know, there's another Kubiak, Clay. He's on the
there's
fucking
7
Niners.
of them, and all their names start with K.
Clay Kubiak is the offensive passing game specialist on the Niners right now.
All their names start with K.
None of them have a K middle name, do they?
I fucking hope not.
Let's look.
Hope they thought of that.
They should have just named. You know how George Foreman's kids are all just named George Foreman? It would have been cool if it was just 8 Clint Kubiaks.
That's so fucking funny. Holy cow!
There was a quote I saw from Glenn Powell the other day, and he was like talking about how he didn't know for sure if he wanted to make the new Top Gun movie, and he was talking to Tom Cruise, and Cruise was like, "What do you want to be?" Like, and Glenn Powell was like, "I want to be you, man. Like, I want to be you." He's like, "So I'm trying to like pick the best roles that I can pick and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you're not trying to pick roles. You want to make, like, you don't want to play great roles. You want to make great movies. And I was like, that just reminded me of like your metaphor there where like, I just want to like work with the best directors. And I think it's so true that like, this will be like it's a competitive advantage for quarterbacks and basically all the players on the offense because their stats are just looking so much better.
I mean, literally the last pick in the NFL draft is going to get a $50 million contract next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Good example.
I still can't believe that Brock Purdy's entire rookie contract is basically less money than Deshaun Watson gets per game.
That's wild.
Right. So yeah, Eagles Saints. We'll see how this goes, and we'll see Vic Fangio, who the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. Chris Ryan's already texting us that Vic Fangio's like, yeah, the sacks won't come until we play the run better, which he's kind of right, but also mad. I can't imagine being an Eagles fan and hearing that.
So, are you guys completely convinced of the Saints? Are you like, yeah, Saints are top 5 team in the league?
There hasn't been any adversity. The Saints have, I believe, the biggest point differential for any team in the 21st century, except for the 2019 Patriots.
Would you consider adversity playing the Cowboys in Dallas? I mean, they did win that game against a good team. I know it hasn't been close in the second half.
I mean, the same thing is, so I know we're jumping around a bunch of games, but I think that it's similar to Brock Purdy, where what the Vikings do. So the Vikings are playing the Texans this week, and the Texans, the Vikings just beat the 49ers. And we were just talking about Brock Purdy. Now the Vikings play the Texans. You know what offense the Texans run? The 49ers offense. So how the Vikings beat the Niners, which you'd be really aggressive first, second down. You want to put Brock Purdy on 3rd and long. Shout out again to Cody Alexander, who has great Substack at match quarters. He's as good as a defensive mind as there is. And he basically was like, you know what? Kyle Shannon's not winning any 7-on-7 contests. You know what I mean? Like Kyle Shannon's offense is football, but when you go and you have you put Brock Purdy in 3rd and 10, he's better than Jimmy G at it, but that's how you can beat Brock Purdy. So then you look at the Texans and you're like, all right, I would judge CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud can be getting these 3rd and longs this week. You're like, all right, another notch in the belt for him being legit. But back to your point, it's the same question with Derek Carr. It's easy to do all the play action, the motion, the boot when you actually have to respect the run because it's like 2nd and 5. Mm-hmm. But I think if Derek Carr this week against the Eagles is like out here converting 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, I'm going to be like, fuck, okay, I was wrong about Derek Carr.
But it's funny.
But also, if he comes back to being a pumpkin, it's going to be on 3rd and 10.
Isn't that just like always the strategy in football? It's like 3rd and long is good.
Yes, but I don't think it's ever been
every team.
100%, but I don't think it's ever been. I think with the Shanahan stuff, it's more important than ever to do that. I think basically it's really hard, especially when like McCaffrey's healthy on the Niners. It's like impossible to keep the Niners out of like 2nd and short. That's the problem.
I thought it was a very cool clip. They caught Brock Purdy after that Vikings game going up to Brian Flores, and he was like, "Your scheme is crazy. You messed me up." Which is cool. A cool interaction. You don't get to see stuff like that.
Recognized game.
Steven Ruiz proposed that like we used to have the Dalton rule for like an average quarterback is better or worse than Andy Dalton. Steven Ruiz proposed that basically the Brian Flores rule of how much Brian Flores blitzes you is basically like
how good you are.
Bar of how good, like you're a good quarterback or not. If he doesn't blitz you, it's because he thinks you're going to beat the blitz. And that's like what a better test for being a modern quarterback.
So the less he blitzes you, the more he respects you.
Probably oversimplistic, but kind of, yeah. Basically, how Brian Flores plays you is a conduit to whether you're good or not.
That's cool.
Which I think is a pretty good bar.
Hey, by the way, I did a little research. Gary Kubiak has 3 sons, Clint, Clay, and Klein.
What's Klein up to?
Klein, by the way, is currently an area scout for the Dallas Cowboys. Guess who's going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys next year? Klein Kubiak.
Klein is in the shadows right now, like the 3rd Hemsworth, just waiting for his moment.
Well, Kellen Moore, when he was the coordinator for Dallas, Jerry Jones never got his name right. So what do you think Jerry Jones is going to call Klein Kubiak?
Kellen?
Yeah. He called him Keelan for 5 years.
Heifetz, Klein played wide receiver for Rice University. Remember how you're a Rice hater?
You were disparaging Rice.
Yeah. Rice is a great academic school.
Sure.
You want me to respect the Rice football program?
I mean,
I do.
Please do. Yeah.
Well,
I think I speak for all Rice owls.
There's not even that much owl in an owl. Look up at they're all feathers. It's all feathers.
There's not that much owl in an owl.
The word owl doesn't mean feathers.
No, but if you look at an owl, you're like, that's a big bird. You get the bird wet, it's fucking this big. It's like it's not that big.
Wet bird, yeah, like birds without their feathers are freaking weird looking.
You ever seen owls though? It's like 80% feather, 20% bird.
You ever seen a hairless bear? Whole different vibe.
Yeah, it's fucking.
It's very true.
Like demons. They're like kangaroos. You're like, this shit came from fucking hell.
Honestly, like every animal without hair kind of looks awful. So it's not just owls. Cats, dude, hairless cats. Come on.
People?
What about, hey?
Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant more like Danny DeVito coming out
We
of the
look
couch.
the best without hair. We've evolved to look good without hair.
Well, I think
and to live without hair.
Well,
that's what hats are for.
I want to start with Lions Cardinals because I feel like this is the rainbow strip, right, DK?
Yeah, right now the over-under for that game is 51.5, or at least when I last time I checked, and that's the highest on the week. Detroit obviously has a really good offense. The Cardinals' offense has been much better. I mean, I think maybe even better than people were hoping because Kyler has been awesome. He has 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's like he's like top 5 in almost every metric: adjusted yards per attempt, EPA per dropback, success rate. He's been really explosive passing the ball. He has 7 completions of 20+ yards, which is 5th. He is the fantasy QB3, and he's PFF's number 1 overall graded quarterback so far. So Kyler Murray has looked incredible. I just think this is, this is obvious. It's like we all know this, but it just helps to be really healthy. Like it helps to be healthy. And Kyler Murray especially, because his game is predicated on, running around, escaping, making plays a little bit out of structure. That's kind of his style. That's always been what he's best at. And so I think last year we were a little unsure what he was because he was playing, coming off of this injury, and he was still decent. But now I think he's back to full health. Until Call of Duty comes out, I'm like really excited about watching this Cardinals offense. When does Call of Duty come out? It's like in October?
October or November.
Yeah.
Hopefully his contract doesn't allow him to play that until after the season.
They have some like chip that they can put in his Game Boy, or not Game Boy, like his game consoles, and like disallow him from playing Game of Duty.
Game of Duty? Game of Duty?
Game of Duty. Call of Duty.
That's worse than the 2 buildings.
Game Boy.
It's not
Game
worse.
of Duty.
I reference Game Boy. Have you guys ever? Is Game Boy still a thing?
Duty?
I played
is worse
Game Boy.
than the 2 buildings.
No, I don't think so.
Game of Duty. I just like mixed 2 words.
Yeah, he just got his wires crossed.
Face
I
snap?
was like, I don't know what it's called. The 2 buildings.
2 buildings. By the way, nothing will ever be better than.
I would be launched into the sun.
Nothing will be better than 2 buildings.
Oh, that's funny. The Lions and the Cardinals, I think, are the 2 best. Maybe not best, the 2 most fun fantasy teams this year. They're that perfect situation. Defense gets shredded. They play indoors, and their offenses have a lot of firepower. The Lions, I think, especially with Goff, we talked about this in Power Hour, but Goff is 29th in points this year, and he's 2nd in expected points. So, obviously this game's in Arizona in a dome. Once again, great bet on Goff this week. And yeah, every single week, Cardinals and Lions are going to be amongst like probably the 2 most fun teams in the league. It was like, remember the Colts last year with Minshew? Every game was like 38-36. These 2 teams are in that range this year.
100%
Bucks as
agree.
well. Bucks were in a lot of games like that last year, and it feels like they're going to be this year.
100% agree. And if you want, like, for all the stuff about too high in offenses, if you want to see like modern offenses that are fucking crushing it in the, like, just the current NFL, like the Lions and the Cardinals are at the cutting edge. Like everything they're doing is amazing. So yeah, totally agree. This game's really fun. This is like, you got to throw this one up on the multi-view.
What's the spread on this? Lions by 2.5.
Yeah, I love this one.
That's a stay away for
and
Craig.
then the other one that I think is just like the exact opposite game, but like just incredibly, just if you actually are like, I miss the old football. Well, I have good news. The Chargers are at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah,
the Steelers are home. The Steelers are favored by 1. I feel like this is, if there is one game all year where you're like, God damn it, give me the 90s back. Like this, it's Chargers Steelers, right, Craig?
This is a game where I'd rather have the cameras be on the 2 coaches than the players. I'd rather see Jim Harbaugh react to the play than the play itself. This is the coachism Super Bowl. Harbaugh versus Tomlin. These are the 2 best quotes in the league. Just this week, we've had some gems from these guys, dude. Harbaugh this week, he said, referring to his coaches on his staff, he said, like Moses, I'm going to die leaning on my staff. Come on. Who's doing it like that? No one's doing it like him.
Someone tweeted, how pissed do you think Dabo Swinney is that he didn't come up with that himself?
Oh, yeah.
And then on the other side, Tomlin, he was talking about the petty game ball and the Broncos and his process and all this stuff. And in a presser, he said, I can't give you all the ingredients to the hot dog. You might not like it. Like, come on. There's nobody doing it like these 2. I can't wait. And they're going to run the ball 58 times this week. It's the best.
Is there like a conference in the off season where coaches get together and come up with like really great expressions and slogans and things like that?
I think
where do they get these?
I think it's from past coaches, and they they take like the 3 best things they heard from their mentors. And
it's like an oral
pass it
history,
down.
passing it down through the generations.
Yeah.
Wait.
I wrote down a couple of other great. Harbaugh
Please.
says, I take a vitamin every day. It's called steak. Like, come on. That's so awesome. Tomlin always yells at his players. He says, don't blink, cut your eyelids off. Like, that's just the best. Come on.
Man, on
You're either
fire.
drinking wine or squashing grapes.
What?
That's what Tomlin says.
Pete Carroll's one of his favorite quotes was, "You can tell a trapper by his furs." I thought that's like one of the all-time great lines.
Yeah, this game is the lowest total of the weekend, right? It's 36 points, which is pretty funny because there's really no I mean, like Herbert is banged up, but Herbert's playing. Fields is the backup, but they're 2-0 with Fields. These are like 2 relatively healthy teams, and the total is 36. Meanwhile, this total is less than Daniel Jones versus Deshaun Watson. This total is less than Malik Willis versus Will Levis.
Wow.
I bet that this is the shortest game of the year. I bet this game. No, really. I bet they're going to run. I bet there's going to be 60 runs in this game.
Each team has like 5 possessions.
This game starts at 1 Eastern. It's going to be over by 3:30.
Yeah.
There was a image that Daniel Popper, who covers the Chargers, shared on Twitter the other day, where it was literally, you can see all 11 players from the end zone angle. It's like they literally lined up 9 guys on the line. The Chargers did, and then like Justin Herbert and the pistol running back behind him. I'm like, this is. I feel like Harbaugh is watching Revolutionary War battles to like decide how he's gonna line up, and like this is like how to fight honorably. Just line up, and if we're stronger than you, we're going to beat you.
It's just an arm wrestling contest.
I love it. I also want to talk real quick about Justin Fields. This is like the Hawkeye meme, like, don't give me hope. I'm starting to have hope again that Justin Fields is actually good. He's playing measured, like a little bit. He feels like he's a little bit more mature as a quarterback. Like he knows where he's supposed to go with the football most of the time. He's not taking nearly as many sacks as he did last year. He's PFF's 5th graded quarterback right now in passing grade. And he has 4 big time throws. And that doesn't even include the most like ridiculously awesome throw I've ever seen him make last week to George Pickens, where he rolled out to his right. He was like running full speed and then launched a absolute missile downfield right into Pickens' hand, like right into tight coverage.
And it was called back.
It was called back from, I can't remember what the call was. It was like holding or something, or illegal man downfield. But I mean, he's looking pretty good. What's the optimism level in Pittsburgh right now?
I think pretty good. I think Arthur Smith is doing a good job. I think they're using Fields nicely, where it's like Fields is like first read, second read, not there, I'll tuck and run. Also, kind of like we mentioned earlier with the Saints, the Steelers. I mean, I'm very curious to see what they look like when they're down 14 in the second half, because they haven't really had to deal with that. They've been controlling every game. Fields is not throwing a lot. They've been running the ball well. So I don't know. When Fields has to throw 37 times when they play,
it's going to get ugly.
He ain't never thrown 37 times. It's going to be a different story.
Speaking of getting a guy in 3rd and 10, that's not what you want.
Right. But hey, 2-0, first in the AFC North. Come on. Defense is playing great.
Come on.
All right, so those games I'm genuinely excited for. The next group, I just have morbid curiosity. The Dolphins are at the Seahawks this week. The Seattle is, first of all, just how long is that flight? Seattle's home. Seattle's favored by 4.5. So Tua Tagovailoa is on injured reserve. Obviously, had the concussion. It's like, his 4th concussion in 2 years. And so he's on injured reserve. So now you've got Skylar Thompson at quarterback. I couldn't believe this stat. The stats from Rich Rebar at Sharp Football. I have a lot of stats from Rich. I don't know where the fuck Rich gets these stats from. Rich has some incredible stats.
Yeah, he's great.
But Rich's stat on, because I was like, how bad is Skylar Thompson versus Tua? Miami. So since Miami has averaged 4 yards per play with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, and they've averaged 6.5 yards per play with Tua. Now, like, four versus 6.5. That's not that bad. Guess what? In the last 3 years, the difference between 6 versus 4 yards per play is the difference between leading the NFL in yards per play and being last in the NFL in yards per play.
I mean, that's
so
the difference.
Tua, they're first. Skylar Thompson, they're the last team in yards per play.
I mean, that's the difference between getting a first down on 2nd down versus 3rd down. Right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, all right, you're going to play Tyreek Hill no matter what. Like, Tyreek doesn't matter as a quarterback. Tyreek's worst games have been with Skylar Thompson. You have to play him. They're going to get him the ball. I think the issue is Jalen Waddle. do you play him? Because Waddle, it's like it's hard for us to say don't play Jalen Waddle, but if Jalen Waddle doesn't do well, none of us are going to be surprised.
Yeah, this is tough. This whole situation sucks. I agree with you. You probably have to play Tyreek just because he could take a pass 90 yards, and he's like one of the only guys in the NFL could really do that. But I'm probably like using this as a pretty big tiebreaker for pretty much all my other receivers. If it's Waddle versus someone else, I'm just like, again, I want to be with the Shanahan quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have to deal with being like a part of this offense. I think Achane is still definitely playable because he's going to get dump offs and everything like that. Achane and Hill, but Waddle, I'm pretty worried about just, from a volume, like the way that they utilize him in, like, are they going to make him a focal point of the offense? Probably not. I don't know. This is tough.
But it's funny. You said you wanted to focus on guys in Shanahan offenses. Isn't that what the Dolphins are?
You're right. You're right.
But guys who actually have been like prepared to be the starter in a Shanahan offense, I think is what.
Yeah, like, totally. I mean, it's tough because it's like, would you start Rashid Shaheed over Jalen Waddle?
Dude, that's a perfect question.
We have them right next to one another in our rankings, or pretty close.
Again, for me, that's a tiebreaker. I'd probably just go with Shaheed.
I think
I don't trust Skylar Thompson at all.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's one of those. It's a post game clarity thing where it's one of those where you're like, well, Jalen Waddle, I took him this high and he's this good, and then like the game begins and you watch Skylar Thompson throw 2 passes, you're like, fuck.
Yeah, that's like the immediate regret.
Yeah, it's just the immediate regret.
Especially
3 and out, and you're like, oh, I'm so fucked.
And not to make you feel worse, but just this Dolphins Seahawks game is really interesting because it's it's the battle of the coaches whose names no one can keep track of, which is Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins offensive Shanahan guy, and then you have Mike McDonald, the Seahawks coach, who's like basically the Sean McVay of defense, and he's like the youngest coach in the NFL right now. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the Bills wrote the book on beating the Dolphins last week, and I think Seahawks will straight up copy it. Again, Cody Alexander convinced me of this, but like the Bills just, first of all, the Seahawks are going to totally control the line of scrimmage. Like the Dolphins are not going to be able to, I don't think, run very well. The Seahawks interior defensive line is so good. The Miami offensive line is not very good. And then all right, you're not going to run between the tackles. Then what the Bills did last week, they just play cover 2 and they have big physical corners. Like you were saying about the Seahawks back in the day, like the Bills have big physical corners. The Seahawks have big physical corners. I think Tariq Woolen's probably the biggest cornerback in the NFL. Devin Witherspoon's 6 foot.
Is that right? How big is Tariq Woolen?
6'4".
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
he's skinny, but he's definitely big.
Yeah, he's skinny, but he's 6'4". Yeah. And then you have, but Waddle and Tyreek Hill are 5'10", so you're countering speed with size. You're playing you have cover 2, so you have someone over top for the burn, but your big guys taking. So basically, you're saying you're giving up hole shots. You're bigging up the sideline, strikes, but trying to split the safety cornerback, and it's basically go ahead, Skylar Thompson, do it. And they're not going to do it with Skylar Thompson. So it's just all underneath shit. So I think Tyreek Hill is going to have like that Kamara thing, 13 catches for 40 yards. And it's like all Seattle's practicing all week is tackling. And so I think that Miami's going to struggle with this all season, frankly, because their offensive, they can't, cliche as it is, like they're going to get dominated on the offensive line for the foreseeable future.
Perhaps a lot of screens and dump offs to Devon Achane this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and yeah, shout out to Cody Alexander at Match Quarters. He's doing incredible work. Other games here, morbid curiosity. Bears Colts. We talk about the post-game clarity of how excited we were for Caleb Williams and Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Colts are home. Colts are favored by 1. Dika, how are you feeling about this?
I think the NFL needs Caleb Williams to not be like the worst quarterback in the world right now. It'd be really nice to see him have, maybe his belated debutante ball here, because I think this is a good matchup for the Bears and for Caleb Williams in particular. It's a get right game for them. The Colts are 30th in defensive DVOA through 2 weeks. They've given up insane amounts of rushing yards, which I think is going to be important for the Bears because they really need to do a better job of protecting Caleb Williams. Like that's been the big problem is they couldn't run. They can't run.
Have you seen the videos of the guards on Sunday Night Football just running and not hitting anyone? You're like past the linemen, past the linebackers, and then like Caleb's like they didn't hit anyone.
Yeah. And so I think, the number one priority is to do a better job of protecting Caleb Williams. And I think the first thing that you do is run the ball better. Then you can start to get the defense on their heels. They can't just load up and try and rush you on every, passing down or whatever. And so I think that's going to be a big deal. And we can see Caleb Williams look a little bit better. I'm just basically hoping he looks somewhat competent because the first 2 weeks have been really, really rough. And, I think for everyone's sake, for fantasy people, for Bears fans' sanity, and and just people that liked and were excited about Caleb Williams coming in, we need to see a little bit more because
do you think he's been rough?
Yeah, I mean, he's been rough. I think the situation around him is really, really tough. The Bears gave up pressure on like over half of the pass of the dropbacks last week. There and a lot of the time it's like nobody's blocking a guy type pressure. It's not like, he's sitting there in the pocket, blah, 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 and he waits too long and gets sacked. It's like pressure is coming directly up the gut right away, and he's having to pull a rabbit out of the hat. So I think there's been small flashes with him, but I've been a little bit disappointed with inaccuracy. That's the main thing. Like when he does pass, it just hasn't been as accurate as I think he can be. Yeah. So he's pressing. He's pressing for sure.
The inaccuracy's been tough. They interviewed Clint Kubiak to be their offensive coordinator. They Bears hired Shane Waldron. Yeah, the Bears hired Shane Waldron, who's the Jackson Smith and Jigba "Are We Live" guy when they asked about it. DK, if the Bears had just hired Clint Kubiak, are we talking about Caleb Williams' best debut of all time? Like, I think it's coaching and the interior line's bad, but even the Saints' interior line wasn't good, and they're crushing it.
Yeah, it would help a lot. I think, and ironically, Waldron does come from that same tree, but he's just not really shown anything to me.
Right. He came from McVay, right?
Yeah, he came from McVay. He was like McVay's passing game coordinator at one point.
For like a year or two, yeah.
You know what? I think I think we cracked the code. Do we think that Shanahan's friends are better than McVay's friends?
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like the track record's way better.
I feel like the Venn diagram of those guys is pretty...
I know. I'm trying to think.
It's like a circle, but yeah.
Liam Cohen is doing well in Tampa. That's McVay.
That's true.
Zach Robinson kind of TBD in Atlanta.
Zach Taylor. Do we give him to McVay or Shea? I guess he's more
Zach
of a McVay
Taylor
guy.
Was Brian Callahan under McVay at all or no?
He was with the Bengals, but I think where did Brian Callahan come from? God, it's so hard to keep track of all these 40-year-old white guys, isn't it? They're all the fucking same.
They all have a nice 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, I know, because they don't sleep.
He has history with the Raiders, the quarterbacks coach in 2018, Detroit Lions, 2016-17, Broncos.
Wow. And he got a job? That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But he's tangential. He's on the tree. He just hasn't had first-person experience.
He's adopted.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we'll see that. Maybe we cracked the code there, something with Shanahan. Maybe Shannon's a better friend.
I just think also, we got to give credit to some of these guys for actually being smart. Like, Matt LaFleur, I think it's not just like, oh, this scheme is good. I was hanging out with McVay and Shanahan at some point in my career, and therefore I'm good. Like, he's really smart, strategy, play sequencing, play design, personnel, all that stuff. Like, he's really smart. He's really good. And I think, based on what we've seen with Clint Kubiak, which is a really small sample, like, he might just have that too. And by the way, it's just like Shanahan. He's been around football his entire freaking life. Like that, you tend to absorb some of the ideas and some of that, the most important things as you grow up and whatever. So I know he's a Nepo baby, but it actually matters here that he was around football his whole life.
Nepo babies are better. Like the highest of highs always end up being Nepo babies. Craig, is there a director comp for some new generation of directors coming in? They're it's not even rocket science. It's just they're doing stuff in a new way that obviously is going to be the way to go forward. Whereas
Nepo director, there's Jason.
No,
Reitman.
Not a Nepo director. Oh. Like the Kubiak Shanahan, the Shanahan McVay stuff. Where I don't know if there's a director comp or a movie comp, but just I don't know. I think it really is generational in that.
Sofia Coppola.
It's not always. I guess it's not always generational. It's
directors doing things in new ways. I don't know. It's I'd probably say not, because my mind jumped to guys who are using technology in an interesting way. But James Cameron's 70 and he's probably leading the way in that.
But he's like Andy Reid, but a lot of guys get left behind. Yeah. It's some people are open to it, some guys aren't. But yeah, you mentioned LaFleur. So the Packers are at the Titans this week, and again, it's a revenge game for LaFleur because he came from the Titans.
Yeah,
and a revenge game for Malik Willis because Malik Willis came from the Titans. Titans are home
if he plays.
Finally, right? Love might play. He practiced today.
I think that's bullshit.
Probably. Really? I think he's going to play.
Look, maybe again, nervous Jewish mother energy over here, but Jordan Love, it was MCL, right? In his knee.
Actually, the Titans, maybe they think they can squeeze one more win out.
It was 2 weeks ago. You won with Malik Willis.
Yeah.
You just paid Jordan Love $250 million.
Yeah, you got to lose with Willis once, and then
you're going to RG3 his ass. Wasn't Matt LaFleur on that staff with RG3 when they fucked up RG3's knee because he came back? So you gave him $250 million. You're how about you wait another fucking week?
Who are they playing next week? Minnesota, at home. Yeah.
I'm I don't give a shit if it's the Chiefs. Bringing Jordan Love. Jordan Love is your franchise. For the next, hopefully 10 years. To risk that for a game to me is psychotic.
Yeah. Squeeze out a win against the Titans. You can do that. Big deal.
Also,
even if you lose.
This is the like, just let, the tennis strategy where you just like let the other opponent make a mistake. You just like serve it back to him or whatever. And
that's my ping pong strategy.
Keep hitting it back to him. Yeah. This is like,
that's
just
everybody. Yeah.
Just
Craig actually worked us in ping pong.
I'm good. I'm nice. And I haven't played in a while.
Just follow the ball.
You should see me when I'm
hot. Shout out to your friend Jackson Bevins, DK, who texted us. I'm so jealous of this idea. So last week, Malik Willis had the most passing yards of his career. He had 127 yards. Malik Neighbors had Malik Willis had 122. Neighbors had 127. And Jackson texted us and said, we should have a Malik. Can FanDuel, and whoever from FanDuel is listening, can we get a line? What is the line? Malik Neighbors receiving yards versus Malik Willis passing yards every week they're playing. Because I don't even know who would be favored.
I think Neighbors.
The Titans have given up the fewest yards for an 0-2, the fewest yards in the league, fewest yards for an 0-2 team since before Craig and I were born.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I went back and watched all of Malik Willis's dropbacks. Again, this is another reason I feel like we should be praising LaFleur and putting him in the similar bucket as a lot of some of these great wonderkin quarterbacks or coaches. I mean, like right now, for some reason, I don't think LaFleur gets his flowers, pun intended. Because for whatever reason, because he had Aaron Rodgers, I guess, for a couple of years, but he's like every year just designing really good, really smart passing games, really good run games. And what they did with Malik Willis was basically a lot of quick game stuff. They had a lot of really interesting wrinkles to their run game where they were implementing motion and end arounds and misdirection and basically just trying to make it as easy as possible for Malik Willis. It was like teaching tape on how to manage a quarterback who literally just got there like a week, like a couple days before that, or whatever. It was like 10 days before that. And I can't overstate how bad Malik Willis looked before he got to the Packers. And like the fact that he was able to win this game and have like a pretty efficient outing. I'm so impressed by LaFleur and what he did with that.
Do you guys remember how Mike Vrabel was fired by the Titans? And we were all like, why the fuck did the Titans fire Mike Vrabel? The answer is because the Titans owner, Amy Adams Strunk, saw that Matt LaFleur had like the best winning percentage of any coach in NFL history and was like, why the fuck did we let him leave? And honestly, it's just that. It's just he left. And that's why Vrabel got fired for Brian Callahan, is because the Titans owner was like, how the fuck did we let this guy out the door?
And she's blaming that on Vrabel?
Not blaming it on Vrabel, just the idea that a defensive coach will never be able to keep an offensive system because if you have a bad one, they stay. But if you have a good offensive system, like Clint Kubiak with the Saints, he'll be a head coach next year probably if this keeps up. And so, I think it's just like, we'll never be able to keep these quarterback guys. You have to give. And that's why I think 22 teams have had a different offensive coordinator in the last 2 years. There's been 22 teams.
Yeah, the longest tenured OC is like 2 years.
Yeah,
it's like ridiculous.
Because you have to. It's like IP. Offensive coordinators are like IP now. It's like you have to give them the head coach job just to have the system. Otherwise, you're going to keep swapping it out for the quarterback, and that's really what it was. So yeah, LaFleur's unbelievable.
That's also not true. Wait, actually, what is the longest tenured OC right now?
It depends. You count. If you
depends
don't
on how you
count,
like categorize it or whatever.
If you count play calls, so like Andy, you're not counting because Andy Reid's the head coach.
Not head coaches that call plays, right?
Count offensive coordinators that call plays. I don't think. Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong. I have this somewhere. I think it's less than 3 years. I don't think there's one play calling coordinator.
Pete Carmichael for a while, right?
Yes, it was, I believe. So yeah, but that's the theme. It's like, I believe no one's 3 years. I'm sure people can email us ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com if I got that wrong, but very few. Also, before we move on, I just have to shout out Malik Willis for this revenge. So he was asked, because he was drafted by the Titans and he played poorly for them. And he was asked, are you motivated by the Titans giving up on you? They traded him for 7th. He said, I could care less, bro. I think I got paid the whole time I was there. I'm more than blessed for the opportunity they've given me. They brought me into this league, and whether those guys are there or not, that organization, they took a shot on me. Miss Amy, who owns the Titans, they did a great job by me for all I'm concerned. I love that. I love that attitude. And Malik Willis is the guy who gave clothes to a homeless guy at the combine. I love Malik Willis. And also, I fucking hate all the pettiness that has just become in the blood system of athletes, like the Jordanification of pettiness, anger. And I'm like, I fucking love this. What a well-calibrated worldview.
He's probably going to suck.
Yeah. Soft.
I kind of think that he's too nice to be good at football.
That's
I was going to say, like, Hyvitz, personally, do you agree with that philosophy? If you were an athlete, would you try to be positive, or would you create Would you conjure up grievances to make you play better? Because I would do that. I would actually try to make things personal. I think I perform better when I'm upset and angry.
That is exactly how my attitude was exactly like Malik Willis's when I was an athlete, and that's why I am a podcaster.
Right.
So
that's the only reason.
Yeah. Well, maybe if I'd been angrier, maybe if Malik Willis
physically,
was angry,
he had everything he needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got all this.
The mental game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
quite there.
That's Malik Willis is, again, best football quote ever is Bill Parcells. Football is not a game for the well-adjusted.
Yeah, it's very true.
All right. Next, we talked about Ravens Cowboys a little. This is just Fraud Watch presented by FTX. This is like a preview. Ravens are 0-2. Dallas are 1-1, but got their ass beat by the Saints. I think Derrick Henry's going to run all over the Saints. I don't think the Cowboys can stop the run. I think
the Ravens.
Yeah, sorry. I think the Ravens are going to run all over them. I think Lamar's going to carve up its defense again. 92% static. That just static is death. That's not going to work. And I think the Ravens are going to
static is death. I love that.
I know. Shout out Cody Alexander. He's a fucking genius.
It's just so. Again, I know we've already talked about this, but it's just so funny to me. Here, you know how you fix offense? You move guys around. That's it.
And defense is like, fuck,
Motion.
we'll move guys around. You're moving. We'll move.
You're not doing enough. Okay, now you're doing too much.
Too much.
You're not doing too
much. Next here, for lack of a better term, this bucket is called good slop.
Yeah.
Craig.
Panthers are at the Raiders this week.
Good slop. It's a good hot dog versus a bad hot dog.
You don't want to know what's in the hot dog, though.
Yeah, right.
The Raiders are home. Raiders are favored by 5. And again, obviously, Bryce Young's been benched, so Panthers are going to play Andy Dalton. DK, what the fuck do you think it's going to be like with Andy Dalton? Do you think this will still be slop, or basically, do you think Andy Dalton's going to come in and be like, oh, God, Bryce Young really does suck?
Wait.
Or the Panthers going to be bad, and people will be like, oh.
No.
Maybe it wasn't Bryce's fault.
I think it's going to be more like, oh, God, Bryce Young was really, really bad.
Like he's the Pete Carmichael of quarterbacks?
Yeah. I think so if you look at the last, so Dalton, since 2022, 2023, he's had 15 starts in that stretch for the Saints and the Panthers. And I mean, his numbers are fine. 65% completions, 215 passing yards per game, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks, 94 passer rating. Not great. Certainly not great, but, good, solid, regular starter type numbers, right down the middle. And if you look at that compared to Bryce, who's not even 60% completion rate, 170 yards a game, 11 touchdowns, 13 picks, 5 yards per attempt, and a 70 passer rating, that's not viable offense. You cannot run an offense with that type of quarterbacking. I think Dalton can at least get in there and run the offense, distribute the football, stay on track. And it's going to be a night and day difference. And that's not saying they're going to be awesome, but they're going to be actually a functional offense, I think. And so this is a big deal for fantasy. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, I think, is going to get fed. I don't know what it's going to mean for their run game, but longer term, Jonathan Brooks might actually have some value in the second half of the year if he does come back. I think this Dalton thing is huge.
Did you guys know that Andy Dalton has the most passing yards of any Panthers quarterback in a single game over the last 65 games? And
how many games?
And he's
that's
played
the entire post. That's literally the entire post pandemic.
And the kicker is that Andy Dalton has started one game for the Panthers.
The one game.
He started one game, and he has more passing yards than any other Panthers quarterback over the last 65 games.
This is a Kenny Pickett stat.
Yeah.
Bring back Kenny Pickett stats.
And he has the record. He threw for 361 yards in that game. So good for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I think Deontay Johnson could just very easily be a top 10 receiver this week. I think that's just going to be the plexiglass bounce back.
I mean, just look at the offenses in the last couple of years that have been quarterbacked by Joe Flacco and Gardner Minshew. It's is that a good offense? No, but it's useful for fantasy. And
good
so
slop.
I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
Good slop. Speaking of which, I think I don't know if this is good slop or bad slop, but the 49ers are at the Rams. Sad slop. Yeah. Sad slop. The Niners are at the Rams. The Rams are home. The Niners are favored by 7.5.
Is sad slop when you're eating unhealthy food and you like the taste, but you're disgusted with yourself?
Yeah, Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
Fucking Chuck Norris.
That's a parking lot meal, and you're sitting there alone in the car.
You start to feel it's oh God, this is good, and then 5 minutes later, I feel terrible.
Yeah,
saucy nugs from Wendy's.
It's the post meal clarity.
Post meal clarity.
You're like, what have I done? Who am I?
Oh yeah, now my whole body feels terrible.
That's like when I heard that Trump eats for dinner every day. He has 3 cheeseburgers and a fish fillet. And I was
Good Lord.
Every day?
How is he still alive?
No, he might be the healthiest man on earth because that guy can take anything.
He doesn't eat that every day. He eats a fish fillet every day.
I believe he skips breakfast. He has a light lunch, and then he has 3. I don't know if it's like a Big Mac, or cheeseburgers and then a fish fillet.
This is the kind of shit you can get away with if you don't drink.
100%.
It's like if you just can quit drinking, you can eat whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, you can fucking put lead in your body every day. You'll be all right.
Dude, honestly, if I was Kamala Harris, I would just have an attack ads in every swing state. Like, this motherfucker eats a fish fillet every day.
It's too relatable.
Have you guys ever had a fish fillet?
I've had it, but I'm like,
I've never had one.
Like a fish fillet, what are we talking? Like a sandwich?
McDonald's fish fillet sandwich.
Oh, no.
I think that's actually one of the wilder. I didn't know that. I know he does the well done steak with the ketchup, but the fish fillet to me is actually wilder.
I think that was in some New York Times. I read that somewhere. So forgive me if that's not exactly correct, but I think that's somewhat accurate.
Craig, you can say whatever you want.
I don't want to slander anybody.
Imagine Trump being like, those things you said were untrue.
Yeah, how dare you?
Are you gonna recover?
Fact check you. Craig, I have a confession. I love McDonald's.
Why is that a confession?
I don't know. I feel like we're just shitting on Donald Trump for eating McDonald's every day.
I love the most popular restaurant in the world.
Yeah, I don't. It tastes good, but I
want to be abundantly clear. I am criticizing that he eats not
every
one
day.
but 2 fish fillets when you go to McDonald's.
I believe it's 3 cheeseburgers, 1 fish fillet every day.
I'm reading here it's 2 Big Macs, 2 fish fillets, and a chocolate malted
2
milkshake.
Big Macs?
2 Big Macs,
Jesus.
2 fish fillets, 2,400 calories. I don't think he eats it every day, but he eats it every time he goes to McDonald's. And they have it because remember they had was it Georgia football team? Or no, Clemson won while he was the president, and the Clemson run, and they had Wendy's.
Yeah,
he has a lot of fast food, but yeah, the McDonald's orders 2 fish fillets and 2 Big Macs and a chocolate.
2 Big Macs. I have to be honest, I've never had a Big Mac.
I mean, I don't think I have either.
You've never had a Big Mac?
It looks disgusting.
I think the middle bun is the dumbest idea of all time.
Yeah.
I've never understood it.
I agree with that. I don't want the middle bun.
I actually I don't understand turkey clubs. I don't understand the middle bread. Can somebody explain that to me?
Yeah, email us at ringerfantasyfootball.
Is it like it's like a liquid catchment?
How much liquid is in the Big Mac versus other burgers? I'm not like
liquid?
Like juice from the meat and like the tomato and stuff?
Maybe.
I just thought it was like an architecture thing.
It might be.
I've never been enjoying a sandwich or a lovely hamburger and thought to myself, I wish there was another bun in here. I don't get it. This game is good slop.
But anyway,
Sad slop.
So all that Debo and McCaffrey have for the Niners, Cooper Kupp, Puka.
Also, Kittle is hurt now too.
I know. Yeah, and Purdy's numbers without Debo are pretty stark. Without Debo, he averages about 15 points a game. With Debo, 20 points a game.
I think it's easier for Ayuk to play downfield when Debo's there, and it's very different for them.
Where are you guys at with Juwan Jennings? If Debo's out, Kittle's banged up. Do you think Juwan Jennings is like a worthy number 3 guy flex play?
Great slop.
Slop.
I think flex is fine. I wouldn't be too excited about it, but yeah. I mean,
let's say you were deciding between, let's say you're in kind of a dire situation and you were deciding between Juwan Jennings or Quentin Johnston.
Probably go with Quentin Johnston.
Wow. Okay.
Just let it ride.
I just once a week, the only start sit we're going to do is just a conundrum I'm dealing with personally. And
that's a good
we'll just do one start sit. It's just my team.
No one cares about Craig's team.
2 teams.
Starring Craig.
Yeah, my 2 teams.
Okay, next there. This is just the bad slop. Broncos are at the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay's home. Tampa Bay favored by 7. I mean, Jesus. I like Bo Nix being fed to the Todd Bowles Bucks. I mean, this is going to be pretty ugly.
Yeah, I can't tell if I think there's like a little bit of life in the Broncos. The second half of the Steelers game, they actually didn't look that bad, and they moved the ball a little bit, and the defense actually held up really well against Pittsburgh. So I'm not saying I think Denver's going to I don't know. Maybe this is.
I think this is the Costanza.
Zone. Yeah,
I think that. Yeah, Costanza. Broncos
like
money line. Costanza. Because even then you're like, they could cover. I'm like, nope, they're gonna win. I can tell because no one is going to pick the Broncos to win this game this week. No studio show. None of us want to do it. I think Broncos money line's the Costanza.
Yeah, that's good. Baker's like the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. Godwin's so hot.
Feeling himself.
Yeah.
Wait, let me pull up on FanDuel Sportsbook. The money line on the Broncos.
Are they like plus 550?
It's probably a lot. No, because it's 7 points. So
right.
It's plus 270.
Oh, FanDuel.
Well, it's down to 6. It's down to 6.5.
Oh,
damn. All right. Still, Broncos money line.
Those are kind of bad odds, but we'll
yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's not good enough. Not gonna lie, but Costanza, it's gonna.
We'll have to parlay that with something.
With our other one, yeah.
Other bad slop is Giants Browns. Browns are home. Browns are favored by 6.5. I mean, fuck it. Imagine watching this game.
Should we just do the bad slop parlay here and just take the Giants and Broncos money line?
Again, Rich Rebar. I don't know where the fuck he gets these stats, but they're depressing. The Giants. Rich does great work, but he hit me like a meteor. 18th consecutive game the Giants are underdogs, which is the longest in the history of the Giants.
Man.
Are you rooting for them? Are you rooting for them to win? Are you rooting for them to win this weekend?
No.
I am rooting for me to stop caring. I wish I could care less. I think that I was worried that when I started doing this job that I would worry I wouldn't care enough. And actually, I actually really wish I cared less. Like I wish that the team didn't affect me as much as it did.
This game is the number 1 pick for. I won't have this on my screen on Sunday.
No, you have, and then they play the Cowboys. There's no fucking on Thursday Night Football. The Giants have no chance. The Giants are 1-13 against the Cowboys since 2017.
The Giants have no chance. So you're saying there's a chance?
No,
let's bet this.
Costanza next week. Giants.
Yeah,
they beat Dallas once in 8 years. So,
what's your point?
Okay, whatever, man. Also, Browns defense has allowed 53% completion percentage, which is like what Shaq shot from the free throw line. So 53% completions. That's pretty insane. So,
in this day and age, when it's all checkdowns and like swing passes, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, and they're a static defense, but that's why they got rocked by the Texans. They're really good at it, but Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward being a little banged up, we'll see. Sunday Night Football is Chiefs are at the Falcons. Atlanta's home. Chiefs are favored by 3.5.
Why is it only 3.5?
It's a weird line. It's a very weird line. This is kind of the battle of the luckiest team versus the unluckiest franchise of the last 5 years.
Maybe this is the Costanza
snake bit versus horseshoe up the ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we still don't know exactly who either of these teams are. The Falcons couldn't block the Steelers. They got absolutely dominated, and then they ran the shit out of the ball against Philly last week. And then the Chiefs, it's like, can the Chiefs pass? Pacheco's out. I don't know, man. Every time I was looking at the Chiefs' 3 Super Bowl teams, and they're all so different. It's just crazy what the Chiefs can do and iterate every year with their different personnel. 2019, it was they were great in scoring. They had Tyreek Hill. They won the Super Bowl. 2022, Mahomes throws for 41 touchdowns. Their offense is insane. Their defense is kind of mid. They have Isaiah Pacheco. They win the Super Bowl. Then last
youngest defense in the league.
Right. Then last year, the offense is not great. They have Justin Watson and a rookie Rashee Rice.
No
are
receivers.
Only receivers.
Yeah, no good receivers.
They were 15th in scoring. Mahomes was 8th in yards, and they won the Super Bowl. It's just this team can just they're MacGyver.
Can I do a flex? Can I do a cool? I covered the NFL flex, and you guys totally stunned in your ass. Yeah. When I was in the when the Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I was in the locker room after the game.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were waiting for you.
And I was on the defensive side, and super business-like. It wasn't like teams are losing their mind and shit. They were yeah, we did it, but it wasn't crazy. Yeah. And the defense is the youngest defense in the league. And I heard a player who I will not name, a rookie on that team, turn to another rookie, and there were a lot. And literally, he, not to quote, but to paraphrase, but this is very close to verbatim, which was basically, dude, we just won the Super Bowl, and we didn't even know we didn't even know the defense until November. Can you imagine how good we'll be when we know the defense next year? And he said that in the locker room of the Super Bowl. And guess what? The defense got way better last year, and they won the Super Bowl.
They went from 16th in points allowed in 2022 when they won the Super Bowl to 2nd.
Yeah. And now they are the fruits of that. But yeah, it's a weird team because frankly, I think the Hollywood Brown was supposed to add some verticality to this offense, and now he's out for the season. So and Xavier Worthy's not ready for it. So I just think that they have to go back to a lot of weird shit. Yeah. And it's another shoestring of bubblegum offense for them, and they didn't really want that, but they have to do it.
There's a famous Belichick line that I really like. He said this back in 2016 or something. I'm just finding that. He said, "You don't really know your team until the middle of October."
It's like a sitcom. The first month, the first season of the sitcom, you're like, throw it out, right?
Totally.
You got to gel.
That's a great comp. It's like most sitcoms that ended up being the best of all time. Their first seasons are actually pretty clunky, and you got to work out a lot of kinks. Parks and Rec was weird. They cut off certain characters. The Office was pretty awkward. A lot of the best shows started out really slow.
You comp the Chiefs to a team that's like a TV show that's been on TV too long.
Yeah, but it's got to be on TV too long, but it still wins Emmys. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The Monday Night Football. First of all, so there's two games. There's Jaguars are at the Bills.
Can we get a break? God.
Well, no, I was gonna say Bills are home. Bills are favored by 3, and that's at I think 7 Eastern, 7:15 or something like that. And then we also have Commanders are at the Bengals. Bengals are home. Bengals are favored by 9. Before we get to the games, do you guys like the two Monday Night Football games?
I think we know Craig's answer.
No.
Yeah, Craig's like out.
Wait, so they're going to be running concurrently.
One's at 7. One's at like 7 o'clock, and one's at like 8:15 Eastern. So 4 o'clock for you guys.
Yeah. Didn't it used to be? It was week 2 last year when they would do 2 Monday night games, and one was 3 hours.
One started at like 4. Yeah.
ESPN was like, you guys haven't given us you guys have given us shit games for 10 years. Fucking throw us a bone, please. And they're like, all right.
I don't actually mind the Monday night doubleheader if they're at the same time. If they are like back to back, it's just like, oh God.
Well,
they're not back to back. They're an hour staggered. Which
they're 45 minutes staggered, which is annoying.
Why is that annoying?
How are you supposed to watch both those games? You can't red zone that. You got to flip back and forth.
The double box.
But like normal people don't have that. Like, what are you going to do?
I think what they want is, I think what ESPN actually, I don't know. You're the one who has the fucking podcast covering the state of Hollywood. I feel like my guess, like the actual real answer to me of why this is happening, is that ESPN is like, we actually don't give a shit about the individual viewership of each game as much as we want as many people in the ecosystem of ESPN as much as possible on Monday nights. And if the game sucks, people turn it off, and they just want, if one of the games sucks, they want people to watch the other game. And I think that's why they do it.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. I still think it's incredibly annoying. It's like, why do they get to do this once? Is that just like a deal they made up with the NFL? Is this happening more this year? I haven't checked.
I'm not totally sure, to be honest.
Yeah. So yeah, Jags Bills. To me, dude, this is another like, no one's betting the Jags this week. They're in Buffalo. Bills are favored by 5. Bills are 2-0. Jags are 0-2. Jags, once again, a super unlucky team last year, kind of unlucky again this year. Like they had a fumble by ETN against the Dolphins, and then there was an illegal shift against the Browns that like could have swung both games. This team is sneaky close to being 2-0, and their defense like actually isn't that bad. They held Mostert, Achane, and Jeff Wilson on the Dolphins to 59 yards on 2.8 yards per carry. So I'm kind of like, should we bet the Jags in this game? No one's.
This is Costanza zone 2. Bills had extra time to prepare. Everyone's pitchforks out for Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, no one likes to pick against the Bills when you see the guys running through the tables in the parking lot. Like, I think maybe it's a Jags Broncos parlay, moneyline parlay for the Costanza of the week.
Like everything in my soul is telling me Bills. So I'm like,
Here, if I totally agree. If I add the Jaguars to this parlay, it's just money line straight up. It is, oh my God, it's 10-1. 10-1 for Jags and Broncos to both win.
We should do that, right? I mean, those are probably the 2 heaviest bet favorites of the week. Gotta be, right?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. No one's gonna do that.
No one's taking the Jags in Buffalo 0-2. They look
Jags,
like shit.
Yeah, they're the least trustworthy team in the world.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite must be right. No, I think that's really good. All right, let's.
Okay, so what's our Costanza parlay?
I think individually. So if you wanted to bet like $10, then I'd throw like, I don't know. You could do it on a parlay, but also you just throw 5 on one and five in the games, or just like, I don't know, probably Broncos individually to win, Jags individually to win, and then you also parlay them.
Yeah,
or just put it all in parlay. Yeah. Fuck it.
I love it.
I like that. Commanders Bengals. Dude, my Commanders are kind of like a Costanza too. Who's gonna the Bengals are favored by 9. They're the biggest favorite of the week. And the Washington defense sucks. I think I know I've been down on Joe Burrow, dude. I think this is the week for Burrow. This is the week for Jamar Chase. Like, Joe
T.
Burrow's
Higgins might play.
Yeah, he's practicing.
I'm not gonna lie. I think T. Higgins will play in this game because it's Monday Night Football. He's trying to get paid, and I think I think T. Higgins' agent is telling him you can. I think T. Higgins is going to get 100 yards and a touchdown this game. I think Jamar Chase is going to do incredible. I'm not worried enough about Joe Burrow. The Washington defense sucks.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, the Bengals are going to rock them.
All right, maybe we should add Washington then.
Fuck, maybe.
That's actually a good call.
Costanza. Yeah. Wait, if I add Washington, if you put $10 on all these teams to win, Jaguars, Broncos, Commanders, you would win $415.
Dude, sign me up. That'll buy us a billboard.
Dude, we can buy a billboard. We got better bench. Billboard bet.
More than one bench.
The billboard bet. And then on our billboard, every week we have the Costanza Bet.
Yes. And it just pays for itself. Yeah. Wow.
All we got to hit is we got to hit once every 8 weeks. We pay for that billboard.
We can do that.
Yeah.
That's wow. That's how advertising works.
It is. Pays for itself. It's like Ryan Reynolds has his own ad agency so that he can pay himself to make ads about his own companies.
Is that what he does?
Yeah,
wait, what?
Ryan Reynolds has his own ad agency.
It's like how Dan Snyder was like charging the Commanders, the formerly named Commanders, to like advertise on his plane or something like that.
I think that was a crime.
Yeah, Reynolds has his own agency, and then he has his own companies. So then
no wonder he's in so many commercials.
So he has like Mint Mobile hire the Ryan Reynolds ad agency to make the Mint Mobile commercial, which pays Ryan Reynolds.
Is that?
Oh my God! It must be so nice to be that rich.
It's like Taylor Sheridan, the guy who created Yellowstone. So he obviously gets paid to write and make Yellowstone, but then he also requires them. Taylor Sheridan lives on a ranch. I think it's in Oklahoma. He requires them to film on the ranch and use his own horses, and he gets paid by Paramount to use his ranch and his horses.
This is like Trump having like state stuff at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah.
Oh, like the Secret Service was staying in his hotel.
Yeah,
it's like all time rich get richer. You can just elbow companies into doing whatever you want because you're powerful.
Let's do this. Let's get rich, and then let's
get right on this.
Yeah,
it's too good. Gotta figure out how to make money on this.
I just love it.
It all starts with a bench.
Yeah, he's like, you got to use my horses. They're like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
All right, that's all we got. Remember, fantasyfootball.theringer.com for your specific starts to questions. We have our rankings out, and we also update those Sunday morning because, all the freaking players are getting hurt. Emails at ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Remember, Sundays, email us the categories. We have Instagram, TikTok now. Follow us on Ringer Fantasy Football on Instagram, TikTok. We're going to post all the categories we do on Sundays. And if you email us or comment on Instagram, comment on TikTok, follow us, and then we were going to take a couple of those. We're going to read them on the Sunday show, your nominations for our Sunday categories. And then email us trivia for waivers, too. Got to be a number, as Bill said the other day, closest to the pin, got to be a number. And DK whines a lot, so we got to make sure the trivia is whatever the fuck war deep battle.
Once again, asking for normal trivia.
No, it's just world wars.
Yeah.
That's all DK wants.
Battles.
Yeah. World War II battles.
No, I'm fine. You know what? The weirder the better. That's fine. This is the whole
That's not how you feel at all.
Well, I know, but I'm doing it for the podcast. I'm doing it for the bit.
I just thought of a really great punishment for the trivia by the end of the year. Should I save it for Monday?
No, say it now.
I think now, because you bringing up that we have a TikTok, I think the loser should have to do like the Charlie XCX TikTok dance in a video.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Don't know what that is.
Well, you'll have to learn.
Scared.
That's excellent. I think that's perfect.
No,
that's perfect.
It's not bad. I mean, it's not anything crazy. It'll just be. I think
that's a perfect punishment. I think we lock that in. Definitely lock it in before DK figures out what it is.
Ugh.
All right. Thank you, DK. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Kai and Carlos, for producing this episode. Thank you, everyone behind the scenes. Thank you, emailing us. Thank you to Charlie XCX. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, emailing us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Charlie XCX, I guess.
Yeah. Are you familiar with her work, Daniel?
I probably have heard her. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sure I'd recognize it, though.
Yeah, she likes Sneaky Been Around.
Yeah.
The album was good. I know it was like the craziest marketing campaign on an album that I've seen in a minute, but it was pretty good.
Brett Summer.
Yeah.
My team name in one of my fantasy football leagues is Brat Summer, Brees Fall.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That we named Jackie has a league with a bunch of friends, and we named it Brat Girl Fall.
Yeah. You know.
Did you see her birthday party? It was one of those like, oh, she's turning. I forget how old she is, and
She's 32.
It was very much like a PR birthday where everyone had all the outfits in the runway. And it was like, oh, look at all this footage. But like someone showed, I don't know what celebrity showed up with a birthday cake of cigarettes.
Oh, really? Like instead of candles, it was cigarettes?
Yeah. And I remember thinking like what PR, like what assistant had to like go and ask a bakery to make a cigarette cake that day and like what her day was like.
Wait, well,
Was it
did
made
the
out of
assistant
cigarettes
just put
or did
the
it
cigarettes
look
in the
like
cake
cigarettes?
afterward? Yeah.
No, you got to see this.
Oh, really? You
Here,
gotta
wait.
see this.
Cigarette bouquet?
Oh yeah, it was a bouquet of cigarettes,
Oh.
not a cake.
Oh my God. That's pretty funny.
Imagine going to a florist and being like, I need this. Just like a bouquet of Parliament.
That's Chris Ryan's dream.
Someone's assistant spent all day on that.
Oh my God. If not multiple days.
Like,
You know, and I bet you like Charlie saw the first version of it and she was like, not good enough. And the assistant was like,
Do it
okay,
again.
I will go back.
it's a good album though. It was a good album.
If anybody listening is an assistant, was an assistant, and has crazy assistant stories of things ridiculous tasks you had to complete, please let us know.
100,000%. Email ringerfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Assistant stories. I love
Like
that.
stories like how Craig had to be the piss test guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
on,
Like how you tested the piss
Kimmy
bag
Schmidt.
for Fred Armisen.
Yeah, I read the CAA book. It's really good. It's called Powerhouse by Jim Miller. I can't remember who the assistant was or what was going on, but it was like in the 80s. Some assistant literally called in a bomb threat to an airport so that he could deliver a script to an actor who was about to take off on a flight.
Get the fuck out of here.
That's like a federal crime.
That guy probably is really rich now though. So
Dude,
it worked
life
out.
before the internet was insane. Especially the things people did at airports. So Peter King, so he's like a legendary sports reporter. And he wrote this in a column that when he first started, I think in Cincinnati, I don't know if it was for the Cincinnati Enquirer or whatever, but they had just taken Boomer Esiason, and his editor was basically like, go and get an interview with Boomer Esiason. So Peter King goes to the airport and pretends that he was sent by the Bengals to pick up Boomer Esiason, and he drives him from the airport.
Kidnapped.
That's
Boomer
that's
Esiason.
amazing.
Kidnapped Boomer Esiason.
Those are awesome stories. You're like, that's a savvy guy. And that like, you know, when you just like hear a story and you're like, I know why you're successful.
Yeah.
I feel like we should not be giving Heifetz ideas. Heifetz is going to like kidnap Big Dom somehow.
I think
don't
we
think
should kidnap Clay Kubiak before he becomes a head coach.
Klein.
And yeah,
The
we
youngest.
should kidnap Klein on Dallas.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.